All right, so we'll start with Ganden Hagema. I'm just gonna put it on the screen if I find it. What are you looking for?
Page 7. From the heart of the saviour of 100 deities of Tashita, on the peak of a resembling clump of extremely white fresh curd, King of Dharma, omniscient Losandropa, please come here together with your sons. In the sky before me, on the lion throne lotus, perfect pure Guru smiles with delight, supreme field of merit from a mind of faith. Please abide for 100 eons to spread the teaching. Your holy mind has intelligence and understands the full extent of objects to be known. Your holy speech with its excellent explanations is an ear ornament of those of good fortune. Your holy body is radiantly beautiful with glory renowned. To you who are meaningful to see, hear, and know, I prostrate. Please, in drinking water, various flowers, fragrant incenses, light, scented waters, and so forth. Oceans of cloud-like offerings, both actually arranged and mentally emanating. I offer to you this supreme field of merit. Whatever non-virtue of body, speech, or mind, especially those opposite to the three vows, that I have collected from beginningless time, I confess each and every one with fervent regret from my heart. You strove for much learning and practice in this degenerate age, a major of freedoms and riches was meaningful. I abandon the eight worldly concerns, Saviour, we sincerely rejoice in your extensive deeds. Perfect, pure, holy gurus, and the billowing clouds of wisdom and compassion, sky of Dharmakaya, please let fall a rain of profound and extensive Dharma upon the receptacle for those to be subdued, exactly as they need. May whatever virtue I have collected benefit the teachings of all transformation. In particular, may it cause the essence of perfect, pure, and also drop this teachings to shine forever. Saji Bhogi Joshi Mejo Chahari Ramishi Nite Gambari Sange Shidu Meje by the merits of having offered this mandala to Lama Tsongkhapa and his two sons, may I, my family members, and all sentient beings be able to meet, practice, and act teachings of victorious one Losang Drapa, who had the morality of an eminently pure way of life, courageous in the extensive conduct of the sons of victorious, and accomplished the yoga in 2 stages, supreme bliss and emptiness. Ilam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamnayatayami. The visualization, by the force of having fervently requested in this way, hollow beams of white light are emitted from the hearts of perfect pure father and sons, combining into one, enter my crown. White nectar, the colour of milk, flows from the opening of the tube of white light, cleansing all my sicknesses, spirit harm, negative karmas, obscurations, and their imprints without it. My body becomes as pure and clear as crystal. So we recite the Big Seven Name Mantra, page 13, about 5 times. So now we'll offer mandala, long mandala requesting the teachings. Rinpoche, Rio, Pasan, Geshe, Dojoya, Mamo, Pai, Loto, Kolo, Rinpoche, Nobo, Rinpoche, Somo, Rinpoche, Lampo, Rinpoche, Lampo, Rinpoche, Tacho, Rinpoche, Mabu, Rinpoche, Techen, Poe, Mumpa, Gema, Treva, Yuma, Kama, Betoma, Lupama, Nasama, Trichama, Nima Dawa Rinpoche Chola Nambai Gawa Gyatse Usula Dami Kajo Pusun Sokama Sama Meva Sanchi Do Waji Dachi Chen Sawa Tangyu Pa Chepe Balen Lama Dampanam Tanke Baduya Yonki Gewe Shenye Chepo Geshe Punso Sun Taza Poshanane Tepa Chenpo Susho Yamudu Chinkamo Agio Tujino Vedundu Shesuso Shene Dasam Choma Magudam Ketara Nempe Semchen Chemchela Tuse Wachin Bogone Chingila Tu Saji Hogi Joshi Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamneya Tayami
Sanji Jalan
Soji Chanamba Janju Badu Dani Katsuji Dagi Chinyi Gibe Sanamki Tola Pechi Sange Rupasho
Sanji
Jalan Soji Chanamba Janju Badu Dani Katsuji Dagi Chinyi Gibe Sanamki Tola Pechi Sange Rupasho
Sanji
Jalan Soji Chanamba Janju Badu Dani Katsuji Dagi Chinyi Gibe Sanamki Tola Pechi Sange Rupasho
Kangi Tuzini Zone, Tawa Tamji Bambichel, Kangi Chunikenzo, Kwadum Kela Chanke. Good morning, everyone.
Long time no seen.
Then any someone somebody is not doing that thing and those are sent the dodgy sources on truck. In the thing of the Lamrim Chia, the common goes to Windsor and some of the Tanjadoti. And the Lodgia shall was subject to Yaman Geshe what is the key non and it do that person, you do that in the tragic on the patient. You must shoot to shut down, shape of the 갑중아니 이만 갑중아니 숨게 불준아니 이만 갑중아니 디 에너지 딱 남랑 기술 상고와 성적이 생각 감자를 지어봐나 이만 쉽게 두야 현도여서라.
So welcome everyone. This is the first session for this year of the general program taught by Geshe, and we're covering Lama Tsongkhapa's explanation of the steps of the path of enlightenment. So as this is the first session for this year, and actually 1 month has already gone by, right? So we are now in February, 1 month has already gone by. So when we think of how we set our intention at the beginning of the year, then we can think that there are 360 odd days in this year, 365 days. And in the great scheme of things, if we were to meet every week, maximum we would meet for 52 times in studying Lama Tsongkhapa's steps of the path of enlightenment. So Geshe feels that it's good to, in general, just set one's intention in thinking that I want to continue to train my mind along the steps of the path of enlightenment. And for that end, I will try to commit myself as much as I can to at least doing it once a year. Maximum, we will do it for 52 times this year. It's not a big deal, is it?
And then Sudan Talo Yabuch Yonsare Samson, Lamri Yabuch Kazna, Kazan and Ita, so Kaligating Mark this. And the Longadi has a Pebble Yabush searching, Kazin Saras, the Katsawada, the Jazidam Samaria. Any problem the Yabushi, the Tiripiani, and the Newton there, and it's longer Yabushi there. Wrote 2 years, every resource. Sina Mandi on the
It's actually good way to think as we set our intention. Just yesterday, we have completed a major road work here at Chinrezig Institute, and Mark was one of the major driving force behind that. So most of the road has been completed yesterday, and it, in some sense, it opened the way for us to access the teaching in a way that is more comfortable. So similarly, we can think that I also want to pave my way to training one's mind. So in that sense, you can say that it's a bit symbolic. We have opened the road, improved the road to come here to the center. We also want to improve the road to make way for our mental development. And it's possible for us to do that.
On the Pepe, Temdi Digna, Temdi Mans, Temdi Digna, Temdi usage. Changaki method searching Sweshavina, the constant Diksha users. The Mayimba being Diksonvina. Hanangi Lamga Samasun, Kazit Samasu, Piri on the Toyadi, on the Digio Maras, Diksonvina. The Temdi Agustina, Yazian Chovasra.
Tsultrim the ankle.
Temdi Digna,
Yeah.
Temdi Mans, Temdi Yomana. Temdi Diksonvina, Mardius, Diksonvina, Temdi.
Now, there's a saying in Tibetan, which is probably impossible to translate into English, but I'll try anyway. If I'll try to do it in a freestyling my way through it. So if things have already been like that before, you had to do nothing in order to arrange them in a particular way. There's nothing auspicious in them being like that. Sorry, I'll say it the other way around. If things, if things have already been, if things have been arranged deliberately to be in a particular way, there's nothing auspicious in them being like that. But if they haven't been arranged in a particular way deliberately, but still they work out in a particular way, that's something that is very auspicious. It's quite a lame way of kind of translating that saying, but anyway, Geshe says that looking at the road, right? So we were able to get all our resources together, all our act together in order to complete the road. And then as we're make a deliberate effort to arrange things in a particular way, we can also say that it works in a way that is very auspicious also for paving the way for our mental development.
Anyway,
Geshe is also named that road. Have you heard about the name of the road? It's not the road to hell.
Lama Road, Guru Road.
Yeah.
Yes, Guru Road. Yes, Mark.
Yeah, that's Chenrezig Guru Road. Chenrezig Lama Road. Yeah, right.
And did that, and Nibadelia, then also, then the Bukayan like the Younger Sevo share this. Younger Sevo share the one and the BSP long and from the Samatama say, any you done. And it turned it from Layo in that. In answer, Chitangi, non-cherry, how don't do Genesis Chuzo the senior layer, that's a get on the kitchen with Chagoras, and the unappointed some money, but Tenson, and then was shoot that, and it's on you like the position, but the yourself. The only time, Genesis Institute to say, become your country. Some year country, tended to be. Panda Yashi Dichagoras. Is a Dizon on the pay and a kitchen wing, but the tongue kitchen with Reshas.
And another thing that Geshe wanted to point out, in seeing Venerable Palyan. So Venerable Palyan today is wearing kind of another tunka. So this shirt is called a tunka. So we have red tunkas, and we have also the one that Venerable Palyan is wearing, and also Geshe is wearing. So there are different. You could say traditions around wearing a more yellowish tunka. One of them is when you finish or graduate from a certain study program, and actually it's also quite auspicious because recently Palyan has sat through the FPMT examination for the 5-year study program, and she has completed that successfully. So that's very good, and we, in that sense, celebrate the success and the graduation of Venerable Palyan. It's not that Palyan is the only one that has ever graduated from the study program. There are also other people that have done it before. So it is, in that sense, fulfilling the title of this center, Chenrezig Institute, which provides way for people to develop the Buddhist knowledge and the Buddhist understanding.
Other people, Karzala. Adam is Karzala.
I kind of edited the translation and left myself out of it.
So. Shaping in pictures.
Yeah.
He like Yalutanga, I give him.
I want all of your yellow trumpets. It's either all or nothing.
Yeah, the one I have to see is that the loss of Savachiglia, Vivek TV, that pillow loss of Savachiglia, and on Delia, they say, and it should be so of this country, nature, and did something, ending the window to share this. The number some of the Jimmy Carroches, Delia, and Kazakhstan, the managing Kazakhstan. Interesting, share the vacation with us.
So the Tibetan New Year is approaching. It's actually next week, next Friday. In Tibetan language, it is called Losar, and we have a big program that we are putting together for Losar. Actually, we've already put it together. So it's starting on the 10th, on Wednesday. We have I'm adding to what Geshe has just said. So Geshe is going to prepare a traditional tupa, and we have someone that explains the meaning of that tupa, a particular soup, a special soup that is prepared before Losar. Then the day before Losar, that's going to be next Wednesday. Please check the calendar and our website for some more details. Then the following day, we're going to arrange massive offerings on the altar in preparing for Losar. And then on Losar Day, the Tibetan New Year, we're going to start the day at 10 o'clock in the morning. 10 o'clock? 9. All right, 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock in the morning with a puja for the 16 Arhat. So it's going to be a short one. It's not a massive puja. And after that, we're going to also celebrate Palyan's success and graduation from the advanced study program. So normally what people do when someone graduates from a study program is they offer a kata, which is a symbolic offering. You can also, it is also customary or traditional to make some offering to the person that has graduated from the study program. So if you're wishing to do so, please don't hold back. And also, we're going to have like a really nice and easy, relaxed day in celebrating the Tibetan New Year. So we're also planning for a picnic around lunchtime. So please make your booking or look at the website again and make sure that you come along. And Geshe said that please come along. Not only please come along, you have to come along. And as I said, Geshe on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, is going to prepare this special soup that is eaten before Losar. So if you are planning to come, and you're welcome to come, just put your name down so that Geshe will know the quantities, how much stupa he needs to prepare. Anyway, enough with that. Let's go back to the text and pick up from the point that we left off last year. That's all. Anyway, so we've been looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's explanation of the stages of the path to enlightenment. And in picking up from the point that we left off last year, let's first of all look at the outline to roughly know where we are at. Where is it? And it's here. Yeah, sorry. All right, so in looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's text, we've covered the section in which Lama Tsongkhapa makes an exhortation to make the most out of a human life with freedoms and richnesses. And then when he explains the way to make the most, to extract the essence of life of freedoms and richnesses, he says that the way to do it is to train one's mind along the steps of the path of practitioners from the three scopes. So we've started to look at the section that explains the steps of the path of beings from the three scopes. And today we're going to pick up from the section that gives reasons, just make it larger. It gives reasons for gradual guidance from the point of view of the three types of persons. So there are 2 points to that section. First off, what is the purpose of guiding someone by way of the paths of the three types of persons? And then giving reasons for such gradual guidance. So here we're looking at the steps of the path of the three beings. So we have a person of small capacity, of medium capacity, and a person of great capacity. And in looking at the steps of the path of those three types of beings, it's not that the steps of the path focus mainly or solely on what we can get out of it in this lifetime. It goes way beyond that. It goes beyond focusing on whatever purpose can be achieved in this life in training one's mind along the steps of the path of the small, medium, and great being.
And chima pinchig tenley mean sound bounty, engineering robots. Things that done and a chair, can't have a castle, have a chimichurri, have a chimichurch only, and it did some pending your mind. You have a chimney tenley, low chogo yabadi. Yes, Yatamada was rough.
It is a significant point because when we train a man along the steps of the path of beings from the three scopes, we begin with training one's mind in the steps of the path of those of the small scope. And this is the least level of mental training that we take up. And when we begin with that, the list of the mental training that we take up, we see that the orientation is not focusing on this life, but the bare minimum of our orientation is what will occur to us in our next lifetime and beyond that. Particularly when we consider that to be an explanation of how you train your mind along the steps of the Mahayana path, then the focus is not on this life. The bare minimum of our orientation begins with considering what will occur to us in our future lifetimes.
Dendri tench Togoedi, Sendelia, and the Taki Nansosu Soba, and Tundra Soba, in teaching Kinele, Neovana, Kaya Cheta Medals. Kaya Cheta Medals, but Chavi and the Dimahimba, on the Dendri Tanza Caberchin Lang Yovanza, Sendelia, the Chishi to Kira, in Druxagata, that didn't target, and Sin Ditola, some Damana. And mean some that page and longe condition model said the shushu and said digital sound down dushasi came and does drop that didn't have it and said delay at the end of a manchingi you didn't change Matavina and said the didn't and chick to no shoot and it never made you shoot thing about that did it to no the strongly and did Yixmaji never is it Yochima Tendinego to say it, so Tinsung yesterday.
And the point in thinking of the minimum orientation that we take in thinking of what will occur to us to begin with in our next lifetime is when we consider, for example, this life, we've attained what we call a pleasant rebirth, a happy rebirth, or a pleasant rebirth in which we have avoided a miserable type of rebirth, a miserable type of existence. And this is the type of rebirth that we want to have also in a future lifetime. In that, when we start considering what will occur to us in our next lifetime, if we are born in a miserable state of existence, like for example, if we are born as an animal, we won't be able to do anything in terms of our mental development, nothing whatsoever that we'll be able to do in terms of our mental development. So we have avoided that type of rebirth in this life. We were born in a pleasant state of existence, and we can use this state of existence in order to ensure that we have a succession of rebirth with a pleasant state of existence, a good state of existence. If we do not do that, if we focus on things that belong to this lifetime only, in the sense that if we make a good name for ourselves, if we work on our reputations, possessions, and so forth, at the end of our life, all of them will be left behind, and there is not much that we will have accomplished, that not much benefit that we will have gotten out of the things that belong to this lifetime only. And also considering that when you think of the passage of time, this lifetime is very brief. How long we will still remain in this lifetime? Not very sure, but what we can say is that in considering the great span of time from going from one lifetime to the next, this lifetime is very brief. So if your main focus is on things that belong to this lifetime only, in a sense of making a good name for yourself, having good reputation and so forth, well, it's not a great thing. It's not a big deal because this lifetime is very brief. So then the minimum orientation when we start to train our mind in the sense of the path is considering what will occur to us in our next lifetimes. To begin with, we want to ensure a succession of good rebirths from one lifetime, from a next lifetime to the next, of being born in a pleasant state of existence.
lamluk tsamayin ba ko bi taduk gyabjon yodeba ani gyunsin yodeba dindi chagdos tichiri sambala ta ngam damka ro jesh sura manzul ya tandi nan shingi dendu tenji gudu wana ani bi ngam sum soba ani dindi keneji ya kewaini ya ani keban dumudu dindi samlo tambayno manzul ya dendu tenji goya gyasa gyadam bala wasra am deva devu donga mundeba and Devi tench Goyava, Dendri tench Goyava, really true to watch. But Dendri tench Goyana, Dendri ten Duke Harless edge. Can't call it in the Dendri Tigri, can't the Duke Harden, and one of the Tigri said, he Gundrig Namshadi, one thing on she was us.
And then when we follow the successive path of beings on the three scopes, it's not that we do that just because this is the tradition of doing that. It's not that this is the custom and this is the tradition and therefore this is also what we're going to do. Rather than adopting that approach, we think of the reasons and the rationale behind training our mind in the steps of the path of the three types of beings. There is a philosophy behind that. There are reasons, there is logic that you can use in order to prove to yourself, to show to yourself that it makes sense to train your mind along the steps of the path of beings from the three scopes. To begin with, when we consider what will occur to us, for example, in our next lifetime, if we are born in a pleasant state of existence or a miserable state of existence, we come to see that a miserable state of existence is not what we desire. What we want to have is a good basis in which we'll experience comfort or pleasure or well-being. We want to have a basis of well-being. And that basis of well-being that we can secure in our future lifetimes is not something that occurs randomly. It depends upon causes and conditions. So then here we have to look at the set of causes and conditions that produce that state of rebirth. What causes contribute to a comfortable or a good basis in our next lifetime? What causes contribute to miserable rebirth in our next lifetime? What are the conditions that assist us, that contribute to a good state of rebirth in our next lifetime, to a pleasant state of rebirth? What conditions are there that contribute to a miserable state of rebirth? This is definitely something that we need to look at.
Teresa, Dizata, your Chimas Lanumala, Kaji, and dig it 10 non shinji. And your unit in the things language of and the Gula and Bigos, the Gudru was said. Jim contact him by now. Gulatin and Junganza, and your Chima Dendrit give you Tanan the Druguet, Tanan the Druguet, but the P. J. and Ipenachi, Tabasum Tubi, and Sem John Darby. And it's Migichu, Pitachi, Pena, Ludanaki, and Migio Dingu, and Lunga Nijutan Soberti, and Kiawachima, Dendri Kibi, Duke Chonchaganza, that the Drugo does. Kiu Chung, and Tumons Lanasinada, Kiu Chung, Lamflo, like Tired Basra. Deep, what a Sevana. Didn't chip penny. 깨워치면 된도를 깨워디 해zum 싸우는 메인스래요.
So certainly this is something that we need to think about. When we think about the continuity of rebirth from one lifetime to the next and the causes that contribute and control that process of transferring from one lifetime to the next in an uninterrupted continuum, we need to think of the causes that control this process. Not only we need to think of the causes, we also need to develop and accomplish the causes that produce a succession of good states of rebirth, of pleasant states of rebirth. So when we think about it, for example, in terms of the 3 trainings that we take up as we train our mind, beginning with training in ethical discipline. And there are different forms of ethical discipline, but the very basic one is the ethical discipline in which we abstain from 10 non-virtues. And of the 10 non-virtues, 7 of them are non-virtues of body and speech. Physical actions which are non-virtues and also verbal actions that are non-virtues. There are 7 in total. So we think about them, we understand what they are, and then we become determined to abstain from those non-virtues. And if we do that, that becomes an excellent method, a wonderful method for securing a good state of rebirth in our next lifetime. So then you think about those points and you become committed to abstaining from those non-virtues, physical non-virtues and mental and verbal non-virtues. And that becomes for you the main path that is practiced by those of the small scope.
Now, here is the here Ganzugi Pena Lungagini and Chiamaton and Piggy Kani Sielia, Chu Kichiburi, Silam Gilangilaya, Tendalaya, round the Shen to the and Chikaldi Shekon and Jango Tangon and Mavi Shekon and Chin Rodevana. The any church down in them, the being on the Kanji Kani Shebatan, Lanen Tarangi, and Chile do to it.
So when we think of those 7 ways of acting inappropriately, 7 misdeeds, we might not abstain from them. If we find opportunities to lie to others, to deceive others, to cheat others in order to accomplish our purpose, to accomplish a goal, we might go ahead and do that. And still, in our mind and also in the way that we speak, we're going to say that the Dharma is so important, it's so precious to my heart. So while we say that the Dharma is so important to me, it's so precious to my heart, if in our actions we still continue to behave in a way that is not wholesome, well, the way that we think and the way that we speak are not in agreement. They're discordant. What we want to make sure is that we practice what we preach, or we practice what we believe in. If we hold the Dharma to be precious to our heart, we also need to make sure that as much as we can, we behave in a way that accords with that. To begin with, abstaining from non-virtues.
But indeed, Kanji and Kyochungi Samba said, Kyochungi Samba de Shu Chingy chair the mother, and he said that there are some found there and the Chetan Chun Shengo, he gets a Yatamba, and he Susula Chungi service. Kyochungi Samba Yumi, Kyojing by now, Kyojin the Chimo Passion, Kyochungi Samba of the Yavania, and he gave he Kasota, and Jean Shen wrote some of the ya, and Hematomia, new making it. Kanji Missu Tombania, and Gavach, Juju Yovadi, Geshe Yadam.
And it could be that one's attitude would be to think of themselves as being a Dharma practitioner, but not to take any of the small scope into the heart, not to really think that this is something that is related to me. And so if you think that I'm a Dharma practitioner, but this is not related to me, it's a mistake. Even if for the time being, you find that it's difficult for you to put into practice the steps of the path of the medium in great scope, even if you just take up the steps of the path of those of the small scope and you start to abstain from things that are non-virtuous, you see how it creates such better relationships, such good and better relationship with the people around you. There's a certain sense of affinity and cohesiveness that you develop between you and the people that are around you. And this is really important to recognize. It's not that the steps of the path are something that could be unrelated to us. This is the bare minimum of connection that we need to have between our mind and the Dharma, and taking those early stages into great consideration and making sure that they do affect our mind.
Things have shoot, Geshe and ma tena publishing the Sanjom edition, Chalgos.
Often we speak about desiring peace and well-being in the world peace. But if we don't think about the cause and conditions that contribute to peace and prostration and prosperity in the world, if we don't see the cause and conditions for them, we might still behave in a way that is detrimental to others. We might still kill and desire, and then take things that belong to others and so forth. And if we behave in that way, there's no way that peace and prosperity will prevail. Peace in the world will only come from an attitude that is not harmful, from non-harmfulness. That's the only way to develop peace in the world.
Any longer song of church, Chigo Dane, Gigi, and Shidi Salaya, Bedi, and Zamni Koran, and Kanga Ranjichin, Chudrevi, Yan Chudre, the Mambu Goras.
So now when we think about it, what we wish for is peace, like for example, peace in our country. And yet, for that end, if we produce weapons and guns and nuclear weapons and so forth, Geshe feels that in the great scheme of things, it doesn't contribute actually to peace. It goes in a way that is actually counterproductive to peace.
And
the same thing applies also to environmental issues. If you are thinking of ways of protecting the environment, again, that can only come through an attitude of non-harmfulness. An attitude that is bereft of thinking of how you're going to be victorious over others, how you're going to be on the winning side and others going to be on the losing side. If your attitude is still seeking your own victory over others, it's not an attitude of non-harmfulness. And if your orientation is goal is environmental protection, that's not going to contribute to your goal. Pursuing environmental issues need also to be happening through thinking of a non-harmful approach to the environment and also to your relationship with others.
아니 람기를 먹들이야 말로 랑을지 라 유티 코나 차거든요 유티 마드 랑들 차거라서
But it's not only to this world. When we think of, or it's not only with respect to this world, from a Buddhist perspective, we think of different living beings, different sentient beings that belong to 6 realms of existence. And the same non-harmful approach is applied with respect to each one of the 6 realms of existence.
인제 당한테 소소리야 아니 깨워 치미 되는 상담 있는다 아니 다른 타와도 탐지기 그것도 제도 상담이 여바 있나 가을 상담이 여바 있냐 깨워 충분히 람비 아니 메타메치 양이 최대 상담하다니 너도 지금 잠들인 디난디지 아니 툴람레 아니 시데데 아니 쿠유 손적 타라야 이 최케만은 이 동안 시대기 뭐냐 아니 람딜에 라바이나 Geshe situation.
Anyway, the point here is that when we think of our spiritual practice, if our goal is to attain a good state of rebirth in our next lifetime, or even beyond that, to attain the state of liberation, the steps of the path that are shared with those of the small scope are indispensable for us. But not only for our spiritual practice, also when we think about it in terms of wanting to attain mundane goals, like, for example, peace in the world, harmony, to protect the environment, and so forth. Those things also come through mainly looking at the steps of the path of the small scope and taking them to heart, making sure that as much as we can, we integrate them into the way that we think and behave.
Somebody giving lam, that's the cutting him a shoe, Monte King was so deep and giving drink is somebody so calling with the chivas and Tarwat in the name. That Tarwa Silana Malana Kanji and it non regular Chadan Yumun Hide and it Sebik Sebatin the Yava. Hipam Pamatin the New, with literally giving drink sambas.
So we have covered before the goals of the practitioners of the 3 scopes, and it is likely that many of you already know that or have already heard that and already know that, but it's good just to make sure that we keep it in our mind. So the primary goal of those of the small scope is to attain a good state of rebirth in the next lifetime. That's the small scope. Now, the primary intention of those of the medium scope is pursuing the state of liberation. So then when we think of liberation, we might give kind of a very long description of what it is, but to cut to the chase, the state of liberation is liberation from afflictive states of mind. To be liberated from anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, and so forth. And to be liberated from them means that we eliminate those afflictive states of mind. We bring them to a cessation. We abandon, we reach that abandonment of afflictive states of mind. That is the state of liberation. And the primary goal, the main goal of those of the medium scope is attaining that state, pursuing the state of liberation.
There is that, there is how turning you with Tavasin, the new bomb combat turning in, new bomb combat to a Yomari said. New bomb combat Yomari said. The church is Chagores. Is that D. Did Duvialia, and most of the 7 Yovati, and Duvalaya, so deep, and Piggy Dembanida, and Dembashigi, Namshalaya, Janchini, and New City 7 Yovati, so soon never Chihuda.
And since the primary intention of those of the medium scope is to attain a state of liberation in which they are liberated from afflictive states of mind, the biggest question is that possible? Is it possible to completely eliminate afflictive states of mind, disturbing emotions from our own mind? Is it possible to do it? In order to come to a definite conclusion, what we need to look at, what we need to study, what we need to train it, is the presentation of the 2 truths and the presentation of the 4 truths. So if you delve deeper into the 2 truths, the 4 truths, then you can see the possibility of the complete elimination of all afflictive states of mind, you see that the state of liberation is tenable.
그래서 당아도 상당히 배 아니 나도 주겠다 지금 이모도 섬디 아니 슈치다 슈치엠보 슈치 양지 깨워 터머면 비례야 검진데 아니 지 similar 비례야 배 자르데비 소리지 그러 아니 차들이 담을 다 딜리지 초세야 되다 자원이네 다 용요 섬을 상승이 상을기 아니 코르시기로스 이내야 딘디라인 사마리스 간스나 아니 깨우다 마무 쇼치 때문에 좀된 디고티비 깨우다 마무 쇼치 아니 니문 세비 세번건도 체체니 아니 다좀더 산지 고모토쟁이 다가스 종 사마이고 여타지로스.
And when you hear about this primary goal of eliminating all afflictive states of mind, it might seem to you to be impossible. Particularly when we look at our own mind and we see the extent of our own afflictive emotions, the afflictive states of mind that operate in our own mind stream, it might seem to us that it might be completely impossible to eliminate all afflictive states of mind from our own mind stream. And it's very easy to think that it is impossible to do it because we have been so accustomed to afflictive states of mind since sound without beginning and up until now. And we have developed such thorough familiarity with those afflictive states of mind that it might appear as if it is impossible to completely eliminate afflictive states of mind from our own mind stream. And even if it appears to be like that, still, we keep an open mind in thinking of those that were able to do it. So you hear about those that have attained a state of liberation. They were able to eliminate afflictive states of mind. They're called arhats. And even more than that, those that have attained the state of Buddha. And it's not that we just tell stories. It's not that they're just accounts of those beings that might have attained those states. There are those that in actual fact attain the state of liberation or that become Buddhas. And therefore, it is possible to eliminate afflictive states of mind.
대다 아니 초징이 뉴문세기 여바디 뉴문생이디 줌바 임바치 줌비 로지기 마이자 아니 세요르세디 디톤도 두고르스 줌바 지기 바이나 코다 아니 가서도 코다 무슨 가위 덴비 닐루치 여타스로스 덴비 닐루치 여바이나 덴비 닐루 디시리 떠기 먼저 지게 용다기 아니 줌바 카리 임바이나 덴비 닐루 떠기 줌바 임바 텐투요라스 줌바 세투요라 진짜 무슨 디코 줌비 로징 임바자 디다 무슨 가위 덴비 로디 아니 아니 수수기라의 렌치니 아니 줌비 로디 세투야지 덴데 연구요사레스로.
One way to think about it is to think of afflictive states of mind as being deceptive state of mind. Those afflictive states of mind are states of mind which fabricate a certain life. And that being the case, we can develop an insight into what is true. We can understand what is true and what is not true, what is a falsity. And if you contrast the two, a truth and a falsity, the truth will always prevail. It has the ability to dispel a lie, to dispel falsity. And this is what we seek to do when we wonder, is it possible to eliminate afflictive states of mind? Well, we have to keep in mind that afflictive states of mind tell us a certain lie. They create a certain deception. And if we develop an insight into what is true, what is real, we can use that in order to destroy our own afflictive states of mind.
깨워 통하면 검대기 아니 준비로 디 세발이야 아니 대단 무슨 가기 덴비로 그 따지 덴비 랑래야 라치 대한비 때는 대신내로다 아니 덴바니로 소바지 아니 코트 여버 참마인 바디 전래야 제바 양양도 체지로 아니 비기에 숑다문들이야 시투가는 그들이 아니 제들치 아니 상무당 상무 양변 땅바이나 아니 덴발이야 컴브로그라스 덴비 니물로 컴디 줌바디 아니 코 이해도바디 로 아니 칭이레스로
Our mind has been affected by those deceptive states of mind since time without beginning and up until now. But then now we turn our mind towards what is true, what is real. We spend time and effort into discovering the path of truthfulness. And we do that through looking at the two truths and the four truths. And in looking at explanations, studying and researching the path of truthfulness, we become more and more accustomed to looking at reality from the point of view of the truth, rather than taking on those afflictive states of mind, or taking them up, taking up those afflictive states of mind and trusting that the fabrication that they portray is correct. We spend time in accustoming our mind to the two truths, to the four truths, and through that we discover what is real and thus eliminate our afflictive states of mind.
Lamrim Vidiji by the D and Sachi Niji and Yanchin Shasha Mayuba and Chona Nimataba feeling it was Lamrim Tolia Kanshi and Nimataba Lolia Kunditi kitchen with that.
So then when you do that, it's important to make sure that we develop a certain continuity to our engagement with the steps of the path. If you study that or listen to that or practice that only once or twice, your mind will not transform. It will not be powerful enough to eliminate your own afflictive states of mind. What you need to do in order to be able to transform your mind and eliminate afflictive states of mind is to do it daily, day in and day out, to maintain continuity.
Lamrim Sakashi Nichi, to do your mamma, Sakashi Nichi, Dugunding, Penta, Lamad, Suzudaji by now, Pita, Jeruchi, Song, Dudu, Peniondish, Dumadawa, and Lamsodo, D, Nimatava Layachi, the Piers of the Kundu, and Lamrim G. Cordo, D, Suzurazzi, and D dollars, D devotions, D dollars, 6 dollars, then devotions. And Nimataba, Lamrim Santa Sound down to Yagi, Kokubi. Here was right.
So then one way of doing that is, once you have listened a few times to an explanation of the steps of the path of enlightenment, is to then refer to a text that is more succinct, shorter, to use that as a baseline for your daily reflection on the steps of the path of enlightenment. So we have different texts that we can use, like, for example, the foundation of all good qualities, or the 3 principal aspects of the path, or the abridged presentation of the steps of the path of enlightenment. So we can use those texts as a short baseline for reflecting upon the steps of the path. So you take such a text and you read through the text bit by bit, and you pause whenever you need, whenever you can, in order to think of the steps of the path of enlightenment, so that you supplement whatever you have studied before with that brief presentation of the steps of the path of enlightenment.
Lamrim at this chick, that's not so later, said Sigora, and then Lamrim was shown the layout. Just get famous of Gawies, the young Gograzra, Pegawies, Penangalaya, Kana, Chick, any Delia, Lochong, and she did it, Pidilia, Lotava, Lamrim quarantine, they was Lava and Yajatam killing Chitusaris.
And also liking this tradition of the graduated path of enlightenment has to do with one's karma. At least Geshe said that, for example, for him naturally, kind of, he really likes the tradition. It feels that connection with the tradition of the steps of the path of enlightenment. So that, suppose that, he stays here for 15 or 20 years, and there is a plan that is being made for every year teaching the steps of the path of enlightenment. Geshe says that he's going to be able to commit to that happily. There would be no problems whatsoever for him to do it every year, the steps of the path of enlightenment. Because each time that you read through or study or practice the steps of the path of enlightenment, it's not that it becomes the same thing. Each time that you study the steps of the path of enlightenment, there is a new meaning that dawns to your mind. There's something new that you can pull out of it. There is a new perspective that you can adopt with respect to the steps of the path of enlightenment and the way that you think with respect to the steps of the path of enlightenment. So it's not that you just do things repeatedly all the time exactly in the same way. You can trace your stage of development and the way that you develop new perspective each time that you study the steps of the path of enlightenment.
그래서 노종 가능한 제발은 아주 지 근데 유종라고 통계라고 칼라다 지 인디바이나 아니 간sam질이야 샘리야 념망다 지 가우메버들이 연구도 디 아니 페제타야디 인디제문도스라 인디 인사마스라.
You might take up certain studies, like for example, you might study the environment, or you might study cooking, or traveling to different places and checking out different things. But Geshe feels that it is possible that at some point you'll become tired in doing that. You'll become a little bit disinterested in trying more and more new types of food or continuing with traveling and so forth. It is possible that at some point you lose interest. But then when you look at this presentation of the steps of the path and the way that you can develop your mind, Geshe feels that the more you delve into your mental development, the more you become enthused in doing that. It's not that you get bored at some point in time. Geshe feels that this sense of enthusiasm and interest in making the most out of your mind will still continue to increase.
그래서 대자다 깨우 충분한 링길 아니 상로 디 지당 아니 깨우 침비고 남는 누르세 한번 대다 깨우 숨도 시작장스 아 깨우 침비 남도 신이기 남면 두이스.
So as we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's middling presentation of the steps of the path of enlightenment, we began with giving reasons for gradual guidance from the point of view of the three types of persons. First point is, what is the purpose of guiding someone by way of the paths of the three types of person? Lama Tsongkhapa says first, thus, although it is explained in terms of the three beings, the path of persons of great capacity contains within it the path of the two other beings.
그러다 저 깨우 침비 당한서 깨우 침비기 람스 아니 깨우 침비 로종 지위에서 깨우 침비도 다이 거기다 치주인데 데레 주요라스 이 상전에 깨우 충분다 깨우 링기 람스라니 까우컬라야 지 통종 소리 지 용무스 말 비싸우니 깨우 침비기 람 인기 냠는 냉가디 마시비 끼는지 깨우 침비기 람 냠슬렘발이야 아니 그게 미기적인 좀 실례시하고도니 아니 타바술이 라고도스 라바술 라운디 아니 뉴몽비기 님보 무지 님보 쪼디 아니 다음에 봤던 셔벨 라고도스 디 실례시하고도니 아니 심제 탐지기 로켓 토바나 셈게 토바나 깨우침비 람레스 티 매바이나 아니 셈게바지 용마라스 깨우침비 람세디 아니 예르지 라르지 주수 셈베기 이차도스.
It continues in saying, which is why the Master Geshe says that these two are elements of the Mahayana path. So it is particularly important to us because in this tradition, we follow the Mahayana path, which is the path of those of the great scope, great beings. That being the case, you might think that the steps of the path of those of the small scope and the medium scope are not my point of interest. They are not for me because I'm practicing the steps of the path of the great being. If you think like that, it's a mistake, because practicing the steps of the path of the Mahayana, the steps of the path of a great being, is done on the basis of the steps of the path of the small scope. So this is the foundation that you need to create in terms of your progression along the steps of the path. So you need to begin with taking up ethical discipline in which you abstain from the 10 non-virtues, which is the main path that those of the small scope practice. This is pertinent to our training in the steps of the path of the Mahayana. So we need to develop the ethics in which we abstain from the 10 non-virtues. We need to also develop an insight into reality, develop the wisdom that understands selflessness. And on that basis, then we can train our mind in taking the responsibility for the welfare of sentient beings. Thinking, may I be of benefit to others? May I fulfill the benefit or the welfare of others when we train along the steps of the path of those of the great scope? The basis for that are the steps of the path of those of the small scope. So reading again through what Lama Tsongkhapa says here, although it is explained in terms of the three beings, the path of persons of great capacity contains within it the path of the two other beings, which is why Master Ashvaghosha says that these two are elements of the Mahayana path.
And the Lord give pain injury, then the Lord said a simon pain injury. 11 times tango, and in medically 11 reba, medically 11 and 11 chonga, 11 chonga pig, and 7 Doriala sober, and Zuntra Doriala sober, St. James, and this shortly, and never the Masona, and 11 times, and Zonkan Chuchi. Zonkan de Nalanda pig, Benzuji Namalia, and Chusada, and the Namalia, David and it shown to the Lord, and number Chasson. Number Chawatamase, and in Nambigi, and in Kevi Yanzi so much, Nanandeg, and Kevi Nangipe, and it Keva Antambuchile, Kurdas, or the digits 11 times needed.
So this section refers to Master Ashvaghosha. It says this is why Master Ashvaghosha says that these two are elements of the Mahayana path. So Master Ashvaghosha is related to a particular section of the teaching which has to do with logic, with what we call pramana, or valid cognitions. There's a story related to Master Ashvaghosha, and Geshe said that he's not very skilled in telling those tales or stories. But anyway, let's look at the gist of that story. So Master Ashvaghosha began as a non-Buddhist philosopher. And as it was with tradition in India, once upon a time, there was a great confluence of many scholars coming from different traditions who held debate between them. And when the person lost the debate, they either were incarcerated or they had to convert to a new tradition because they've lost their ground, they lost the philosophical ground. So Master Ashvaghosha, coming from a non-Buddhist background, he was a non-Buddhist scholar, held a debate with Dignaga, a Buddhist scholar, and he lost that debate. So he was incarcerated in the great library of the Nalanda monastery. And as he had a lot of time on his hand, he started reading Buddhist texts, and he became a great Buddhist scholar. He converted to that tradition and composed great texts. He became one of the foremost scholars of one of the foremost Buddhist scholars of the Nalanda tradition.
And number 10 inch, number 10 inch chapter, Nambi Shonlea. Nambi Shong, that's our danger of Jogo, and she him there's on Namzatelea, and it's seeming never years, Tommy, and number 7, and number Yakshu.
It also symbolizes that if you want to become an excellent Buddhist practitioner, you can do that through, or it is done through developing knowledge of Buddhist texts or Buddhist scriptures, developing knowledge of how things exist at the very basis, what the paths are that you need to develop in your mind, and what result you get from the development of these paths. If you develop that knowledge through that, you can make yourself become an excellent Buddhist practitioner.
Then there is see we develop some of the 코월레 타가 좀 람데도 토저치 깨울 징기 람데 치고 민기스 감데 아니 깨울 충무던 징기 람시에치 아니 깨울 침도래야 조수 송바티 깨울 충무 짱단 징 짱기 람래야 아니 지리어 말레스 이짱가 마인바 행이던 통모의 남가식 깨울 침비 람라 치고 군도 치고 깨울 침비 남중 양아도 제바 있노스.
It continues in reading. So this here is not guidance on the path of persons of small capacity who make only the happiness of existence their object of attainment, nor on the path of persons of medium capacity who make only liberation from samsara for their own benefit their object of attainment. What this section means is that here we have a presentation of Lama Tsongkhapa that teaches the steps of the path to enlightenment of the small, the medium, and the great scope. And when Lama Tsongkhapa teaches us that the main purpose is not to teach just the steps of the path of those of the small scope, or just the steps of the path of those of the medium scope. It's rather that we look at those steps of the path as those which are shared with those of the great scope. So then the purpose here of Lama Tsongkhapa is to lead us as practitioners along the steps of the path of those of the great scope. In order to do that, we also need to look at the branches of our training. The branches of our training is the training in those steps of the path which are shared with those of the small capacity and the medium capacity.
There is the Sajini but much Remember that tree Ginzen said, Nibalani, Ginzen Kares, Ginzen Motan Goba. Your Tambo Ginzen no Kares Lounge, teaching the Lambu go. Godi, he watching the Lambu go, and it's Sanju Chok, Sam Kevades. The but the Jazz will show the Chunju Namaya, he give a Kevan, Chunju, Chanju, simply dinner, Kiji, Kuntora Dambi, Montana, Deshe Nangis, Georgia shit, she song but the Chanju Semi, Tony, then did have Kijamba Sula. Hey, Yama Kijim is soon, come and give a you.
Let's complete the reading of these sections. Then it says, rather, some paths common to those who are considered to be preliminary practices leading to the path of persons of great capacity, and taken to be elements for training in the path of persons of great capacity. So we've covered the first point in the section that gives reasons for gradual guidance from the point of view of the three types of persons. Let's look at point B, which is giving reasons for such gradual guidance. There are two main points to those reasons, the actual reasons and the purpose. When we begin with the actual reasons, there's a list of topics that come up in this section. We begin with the entry gate to the Mahayana. Lama Tsongkhapa says the entry gate for entering the Mahayana consists in generating the mind set on supreme enlightenment. Once it has arisen in the continuum, according to engaging in the bodhisattva behavior, which is Shantideva's way, Shantideva's guide to bodhisattva way of life. Shantideva says when bodhicitta has arisen at once, the wretched bound in the prison of cyclic existence are to be called the children of those gone to bliss. Lama Tsongkhapa explains that in saying, for in accordance with this statement, a basis who has obtained the name of a bodhisattva is admitted amongst Mahayanic beings. If their bodhicitta deteriorates, they leave the means of Mahayanists. That's all. We might leave the text here for today. Yeah. Serena?
Maybe the answer will be in the later next section or following section. And for the moment, it's because generally we discussed about the Lamrim sequential practice is liberation and bodhicitta and wisdom. And here it's small capacity, medium capacity, which medium capacity is focused on liberation. Liberation means eliminate the affected mind, which only possible wisdom.
Yeah.
So then what's the difference between the middle capacity of that liberation, the understanding of wisdom? wisdom and high Mahayana, high capacity of wisdom.
Okay, so I'll repeat your question also for the people that are at home that might not have had your question. I might change it a little bit, some of the words, but let's see how it goes. I think I understood what your question is. So when we look at this presentation of the steps of the path to enlightenment, and also when we think of what we've covered in January, when Geshe taught the 2 weeks on the steps of the path to enlightenment, we followed a certain sequence in which we spoke of the steps of the path of those of the small scope, then steps of the path of those of the medium scope, who were working in order to attain liberation from their afflictive states of mind, then developing bodhicitta, training in the 6 perfections, and the last perfection is the perfection of wisdom. So then it seems that in this presentation, wisdom comes at the very end. But then here, when we look at this presentation of the steps of the path, when we consider the purpose of beings from the medium scope, which is to attain the state of liberation, in order to do that, they need to develop wisdom that realizes selflessness in order to eliminate their afflictive emotions or afflictive obscuration. So then, what is the difference then between the wisdom that those of the medium scope being developed and the wisdom that those of the great scope being developed? Now, is there a difference in terms of medium wisdom or greater wisdom? That's more or less your question, right? Matso niyama lamrim 그런 람rim 쉐도르와 kebu sum lang la
나무 쏜데.
lamrim loved it. Geshe is correcting my Tibetan. Says lamrim sundu. I was not using an honorific language, you know. Anyway. lamrim sundu kebu jing kapsulayan 미유 카레셰요레스나 타고pan 튼튼이에요. 근데 라그러와. 아니 타고pan 타에게 쳐도 뉴은지 마루바 빵고그러와. 아니 빵이 튼달라 다음에도 쉐랍게 고그러와. 지선데 깨부 징 근데 체고 그래서 પછી 순요레서. 당하서도 깨부 쳔보 랑게 림바 롭스롭 쉐와 이나르와. 깨부 chumu kevo tumon belam di jane ani dilatene di shishane chanchugi semke ani chanchugi sem jan chumu ma kevo chembo langirimba lob kasa yamne chege chedo ani kevo chumu tan kembun ding shishane tumon belam shishane ani dilatene chanchugi sem tan pachin chuk yamne chego gro 다 판치 쭉 갑스라얀 샤르기 파친 타마라 레게로와 제선 캠부 징 녀몽 파잉기 tun달라 아니 샤랍 다음에 또 샤랍 게고에 케부 쳔보 제셰디타도 샤랍 타마라 제시게하게 제선 케부 징기 샤랍 단 케부 쳔보 이 샤랍 로가르베 가가르베 체추 여르베 컨데치나스
getting sort of getting sort of
Well, I guess I jokingly said that you can think of the wisdom of those of the medium scope and wisdom of those of the great scope as being like a Chinese wisdom and Tibetan wisdom.
마슈니 다 기본 징기 람코나 냠슬란 드라바이나 다 기본 징기 토샤 타르티바디 칼samdan 거는 타르바드려와스 그래서 타르바토발야 파트 주지 니무 빵고다 니무 빵이로디 셔럽디 토니도비 셔럽디 해마다 신강기 자판 투면다 델로고르세 디레스 다 디지그라스 다 기본 징가려야 다 기본 징기 람sam야 람니 기본 친구 람야 마장바이나 Janda Mevaina, the given drink Tosha Taduvadi, current and Togor said. The Dame without the Sheriff Gongor said, which is Sharadas.
But that, of course, was only joking. Now, if you turn along the steps of the path of those of the medium scope, your final object of attainment is the state of liberation in which you're liberated from afflictive obscurations, which means that you have completely abandoned afflictive obscurations. If that is your purpose, which means that you're not interested for the time being in following the steps of the path and training your mind along the steps of the path of the great being, you're not interested in that. If you're interested in attaining the state of liberation, you have to train in wisdom that realizes emptiness. Wisdom that realizes emptiness is what destroys afflictive obscurations. It eliminates our afflictions. If you do not train and develop wisdom that realizes emptiness, you will not be able to attain the state of liberation from afflictive states of mind.
kewa chendu kawu passion tu son di sharab passion thama son di ani sharab passion di tawji ani nyumu ba de shiji de ba yung su se bala ya ani tro pi ani passion thama nga de ya tyungu dos ra hinza sharab passion thama son ma dire ma to be kewa chendu lam gi rumba ni she bi sharab pida kewa drink kam ni she bi sharab ni bo di dame ba to be sharab yin bala that's a tradition. Talk is some of Chani. Gabden that Kevadrugo, Sheriff Corona, Kevayomaris.
But then, if you are interested in training your mind along the steps of the path of those of the great scope, you training bodhicitta and also the 6 perfections. And of the 6 perfections, the perfection of wisdom comes at the end. So when you train your mind along the steps of the path of those of the great scope, your goal is not only to eliminate afflictive obscurations, but also to eliminate cognitive obscurations. And in order to eliminate those 2 sets of obscurations, you need wisdom. And the wisdom that you need is, again, the wisdom of emptiness, but the wisdom of emptiness has a greater support. It is supported by bodhicitta, and it's supported by the practice of the 5 previous perfections, such as generosity, which means that the perfection of wisdom needs to be of a certain strength. What gives it that strength, what supports it, is bodhicitta and the practice of generosity and so forth. In terms of what this wisdom realizes, it's exactly the same. So when you if you're interested only in the medium scope, if you're not interested in practicing the great scope, you need wisdom that realizes emptiness. If you practice the great scope, you need exactly that wisdom that realizes emptiness. But in terms of what supports that wisdom, we have more in the steps of the path of the great scope. The steps of the path of the great scope are supported by a greater type of method, which is the method of the perfections and bodhicitta.
So in terms of practice, is the motivation of wanting together liberation, not just self. That's support us to do the 5, the generosity and ethical discipline, the 5 perfection. Is that support us? Is because the motivation to support us to understand the wisdom.
So in terms of our motivation, the motivation is not just to liberate it from samsara. The motivation is also then to practice all the other things that are supportive of wisdom, such as the 5 perfections and so forth. So it's that the motivation that we use in order to develop wisdom. Is that your question?
To practice wisdom, because for instance, when we start to think about wisdom, we can study mind only, we can study different things.
Yeah.
But what avoid us to? What is the benefit of we have to think about, I want to practice Mahayana, so I don't fall into middle capacity and focus too much on middle capacity.
Chesam Kurandi Sharab Jangi Chedu Kununchi Gogorwa. Tadila Kununchi the Pachin Naga, Tambong Naga Tenso, Nyamlenche Chedu. Kunonchi Gogorwa. Kunondi mena halam sherab kewaina kebu jingi sherab dawochi keagi nyenga yamna dende chi chagi cha yon segerwa. Cheson so de dende Kulon mixechi jango
네. 디나모가 단다 손대야지. 개버 친구 주고 고 전주고 셈레세. 데리스다. 내가 저 디된 거다. 현안기 셔럽디 개버 친구기 셔럽 차다 마차디 세제 표기잖아. 현안이야 전주고 셈기 냠니 인지 삼바. 로 슈친부 여바이나 개버 친구기 셔럽을 연도도 이 뭐인 거 현안기 계란 친구 쳐도 이 타비 공부점 되는 일이 이거 디마도 매봐이나 계란 셔럽이 이운딩 셔럽 줘도
Well, yes, when you think of what Lama Tsongkhapa said in this section, it says that the entryway to the Mahayana, the entry gate to the Mahayana is bodhicitta. So you develop bodhicitta and that becomes the support of the development of wisdom of a great scope being. So the wisdom of the great scope being is supported by bodhicitta. And as it is supported by bodhicitta, it will enable wisdom to eliminate whatever is needed to be eliminated in order to become Buddha. If you do not develop bodhicitta, if you do not develop compassion that does motivate the development of wisdom, it is indeed the case that without compassion, the wisdom that you develop would be a wisdom of the medium scope. So you do need those motivations. You do need the motivation of compassion. You need the motivation of bodhicitta in order for the wisdom to become the wisdom of a great being.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you very much. We'll leave it here for today. Now, up until now, Geshe gave twice a week general teaching. So it was done on Thursday evening and Friday morning. So now we're revamping our spiritual program and we've moved the Thursday evening sessions to Sunday morning. We want to make them more accessible to the public, to you guys and to other people. So this coming Sunday, we're going to start studying a text that is called Mind Training, like the rays of the sun. So this is what Geshe will start with on Sunday. So I see our spiritual program coordinator opening the computer. And so sorry for the short notice. So Mind Training like the rays of the sun starts on Sunday, 10:30. Please come along. All right, what I wanted to add on top of that is, so as Geshe said, next week's Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we have Tibetan New Year activities. So instead of teaching next week, teaching the stress of the path of enlightenment, we're going to have Losa galore, right? So puja in the morning, then celebration of Venerable Payan's achievement, and then picnic. So come along. Please book if, do we have?
For lunch.
Yeah, for lunch. On top of that, from next week Saturday, over three consecutive Saturdays, we'll have a full day of training or practicing the steps of the path of enlightenment. So I will be the guide, so to speak. And what we'll do is kind of look at ways of meditating on the steps of the path of enlightenment. So Geshe is here giving us a series of talks on the steps of the path of enlightenment, and we thought of taking those teachings and making them more practical, learning how to construct a Lamrim meditation, and also incorporate that into our daily practice. So it's going to start happening from next Saturday, right? So over 3 Saturdays during February. More details are on the website, so please look at the website. Do we need to book? No. All right. Come along if you have time. Nothing, it's a secret. Jeme kasat, jeme sa pembaro, sa pembasum, so nimani kan lamrim gomtan de jamjuro, chazan, jeme.
sushi, sushi.
No, not sure.
Okay. Right.
No, me encanta, no. Oh yeah, you can, if you cannot make one, you can come to the other. So we can follow a certain Lamrim meditation practice, but if you don't have to come to all of them, you can come to one of them and it will be all right, I think. We're not going to exclude it. Yeah, they will be different. And the other one. Yeah. All right. Yeah, so we have lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, and meaningless chatter. All right. Let's leave the text here for now. Let's do some dedications.
So in English, may the Supreme Jewel Bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may it quickly attain the state of the Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends.
It's somewhere. No, sorry, I lost the plot.
Savior of the Snowland teachings and transmigrating beings, who makes extremely clear the path that is unification of emptiness and compassion. To the lotus holder Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. You who are called the subduers moral, the service of bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading among us victorious doctrine, who masters the accomplished magnificent prayers, honouring your three jewels, Saviour of myself and others, your disciples, please live on.
Yan san ni mala yung din sa tabi tutsi na.
Kaya saniman, saniman yung question.
Kanana.
Saniman, right.
Okay. Saniman. Sininya kono saniman.
Right. Ano kirichina do na?
Karen. So do you want to do it today or Sunday? No. Yeah, let's do it now. We can sit on the sofa there and do it quick. Yeah.
One is two things. One is
We don't want to do it like 3 months old.